Hi, everybody. I thought I would share a quick note because we're coming into the home stretch already, which is crazy but true. And I just reviewed and gave some feedback on the rubrics that you submitted. And a few things came to mind that I thought I would speak to just ever so briefly. I'm including a Word document with some of these concepts as well, so you can refer to that as you listen to this. But there's this idea of rubrics for graded courses versus non-graded courses. And so obviously in a graded course, we're thinking about how I'm going to grade my students. And how do my students know that they've earned the grade that they've gotten? And it can be very useful, especially if you're having a student who's struggling, to break down where they're struggling, in which portion of the learning. They might be strong writers, but they might not be using the right vocabulary. They might be using the right vocabulary, but they might not be making connections to bigger themes, things like that. So, so it can be obvious in a graded situation, but in a non-graded or a community dance situation, I encourage you to think about how rubrics can help you gather information about your students to improve your teaching, or gather information about your students and their successes that you can then share with a broader audience, or maybe a grant writing uh, request. So you're gathering this information, and the more detailed your rubrics are, then ideally the thought is then the more detailed your feedback is, and the more pointed you can be in addressing specific issues and specific types of learning, and identify where the hangups of your students are. So it can be useful in all courses for different reasons, and I just wanted to reiterate that. And then there's this idea of how you decide to break down your rubric, um, and I really recommend, again, with the online environment, think bite-sized chunks, bite-sized chunks. I mean, we're both writing the line between giving them what they can consume, and challenging them to read a little longer, focus a little longer, work on their ability to respond to more complex ideas. So obviously work with your student population, but in an online environment, when working with a rubric, it can be really helpful to have each item with its own row or column, so that the student who's browsing can see boom, 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 boom. These are the 4 things that I want to make sure I include. If I include a rubric that includes those 4 things, but in a paragraph form, it's less likely that the reader is going to see all 4. So that's just another tip that I've discovered. Um, there's also the idea that you can use your rubrics. Like, I actually don't like grading with rubrics. I don't know. I'm more of a Gestalt person, so here I am advocating for rubrics, but in my own personal practice, it's not something I really enjoy working with, even though as a student I do like receiving specific feedback in certain cases. But what I do find really helpful and really useful is, in a classroom, using a rubric as a peer assessment or a peer grading for a formative assessment process. So I find that to be really rewarding, where then as a class we talk about the rubric as relating to a specific person's submission, if it's a choreography assignment or something like that, or they assess each other. I think that's a really rich experience. So that's another way that I encourage you to use your rubric, again, in the online environment. So we're using fewer items, but we're getting really deep into the thinking and into the work. So those are a few thoughts for you to consider. And then in the Word document, you'll see that these are really quickly drawn together, but I wanted to model a couple different perspectives for creating rubrics. So the first one is the proficiency model, which is you outline the requirements in the assignment, and then And then your rubric says how closely, how closely did you meet the assignment, all the points that are listed in the assignment, and you'll get points for that. And that's fine and that's great. It just means that the student's going to look in two places in order to review what should be included in the assignment. So that's okay, but it does require you, student, to look in two places. Then there's the rubric model that's broken down and focuses on processes. So these are going to be verbs that your students complete. So I have verbs like identify and describe, relate to prior knowledge, connect to personal experience. So those are 3 examples of things I want the students to do within this assignment. And then I articulate what excellent would look like, proficient, satisfactory, and developing. So those are just terms I like to use. You can use whatever terms you like or whatever terms you need to at your institution. But those are verbs, therefore processes. The next model is a components model, which is now you're going to look at the stuff. So the nouns, they're all nouns. Is there an introduction? And then you can describe kind of what happens in the introduction. Is there a reference to a required reading or an article? So that can be really clear. Is there the movement vocabulary that you've identified in class, and is that present? Is there analysis and commentary as part of your submission? So these are common things that I require in my dance history and dance world dance cultures class, and so I find it really helpful. And I find that my students really like the components model. And then it's really easy to grade and say, oh, your introduction is undeveloped, or, oh, your movement vocabulary is inaccurate or misleading or something like that. And that gives them a little more insight. So anyway, little couple ideas about rubrics, and I hope it's helpful. I'll try to get to grading your other assignment today, which is your more fleshed out module, I think. But I am participating in NDEO. I just attended Ann Hutchinson Guest's pre-conference session yesterday. It was so great to see her. And if you are attending the conference, that is available, and it is dance archaeology for the green table. So that was really fun. And then if you are attending the conference, I am holding a session for improvisational ballet bar for a Zoom class. So it's a twist on ballet and it's a twist on improv, right? This is actually, I don't teach a ballet class at my institution, although I have taught ballet in the past quite a bit. And so, but what I do is I find my students struggling then to, my improv students will often say things like, oh, but ballet. I'm like, what do you mean? Ballet's great. We just need to reframe how we train in it to suit that student's disposition and that student's exploratory nature. And so I've devised this class. So anyway, that's on Sunday. And so maybe you'd like to drop in, but you guys also get enough of me here. So there's lots of other sessions that look really good. So enjoy. And if I am a little out of touch, that's why I'm trying to attend the conference and prepare my own session and things like that. But I hope to see you soon. Okay, bye.